The province announces new funding to address several local health care issues. Natural gas users to pay a price for our brutal winter. And high-level diplomatic talks fail to reach agreement on the Crimea dispute.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Healthcare providers in the city have come up with a plan they believe will address the gridlock problems at their Thunder Bay Regional Health Sciences Centre.
Today, the Minister of Health gave her stamp of approval in the form of a $14 million check. That funding will help open up 53 beds in our community, including long-term care beds at the LPH. Dennis Ward has more on how the money will be used.
And that present is $14 million.
Not a bad gift to receive on your 10th birthday, but it's one many would say is desperately needed at this time. The regional hospital is frequently in gridlock with few available beds. It is hoped this plan will help address the overcapacity by opening up 53 new beds in facilities throughout the city.
Status quo is not okay, so they came together with a plan, they developed a plan, and today I'm very proud to say that we're implementing that plan. I want to say this is the beginning. This is a short-term plan. There is more that will need to be done down the road, but this will significantly reduce pressures in the hospital by providing care outside the hospital.
26 of those new beds will be created at the Lakehead Psychiatric Hospital. At one time, moving long-term care patients into the facility was deemed inappropriate, but apparently a closer look at the LPH showed care could be provided there in the short term. St. Joseph's Care Group CEO Tracy Buckler says there's a long waiting list for long-term care beds, and they just don't exist right now.
We actually have a unit that would be available to open quite easily for 26 clients to be there. It's, again, a temporary solution. It's not ideal. The ideal solution would certainly be to have sufficient long-term care bed capacity.
A few weeks ago, the regional hospital was running a deficit of more than $2 million. Regional Vice President Dr. Stuart Kennedy believes the books will be close to balanced with the help of this cash infusion. He also feels the new investments will address gridlock.
But in healthcare, you get ups and downs. You get sort of an epidemic with flu. You got the elderly population. So it's going to go a long way to help alleviate some of the challenges we have with gridlock. Is it going to cure it? I'm not sure yet.
Included in the minister's announcement was more than $4 million to provide home care for an additional 500 seniors in Thunder Bay. There was also funding announced to help recruit 24 full-time and temporary emergency room doctors. Dennis Ward, TBT News.
Minister Matthews also made a stop this afternoon at the Norwest Community Health Centre on Simpson Street. Matthews and MPP Bill Morrow got a tour of Norwest Community Health Centre's Thunder Bay site. A nutrition program was one of the areas they got to see firsthand and talk to people who are learning how to cook healthy food. Norwest CEO Wendy Talbot says it was a good opportunity to show the minister the innovative activities and programs employed in healthcare in the north, as opposed to just looking at a report.
I think one of the main things is just to let Minister Matthews know that we are doing some pretty special things up here, and to, quite frankly, demonstrate that we have to do business a little bit different up in the north. We've got a lot of isolated communities, they're remote communities, and the health indicators in the north are not as good as they are in southern Ontario, so we've got to be innovative.
Talbot says the $14 million investment won't support them directly, but it will support the community and their clients, which in turn will benefit the centre.
Natural gas bills for Union Gas customers in the Northwest could see a major jump next month. The utility has applied to the Ontario Energy Board to increase its rates by an average of $16 a month. A Union Gas spokesperson says the hike is due in part to the harsh winter, which has driven up their commodity price. The cost of gas per cubic meter will rise from 13 cents up to 20 cents, which is a 54% increase. That new rate would still be lower than in 2004 when prices peaked at 27 cents a cubic meter. The lowest rate for natural gas came in April 2012 when the price bottomed out at just 8 cents a cubic meter. If this latest increase is approved by the OEB, the changes will go into effect on April 1st for over 40,000 Thunder Bay area customers.
Demolition work continues at the former Fine Papers mill on the north side of the waterfront. Chemicals which are harmful to the environment are also being disposed of in accordance with the ministry regulations. The previous owner, Superior Fine Papers, was issued an order to carry out the cleanup. But when the property was sold, the new owner was required to do the work as part of the settlement. According to Lisa Brigadier from the Ministry of the Environment, work crews are currently removing the containers which contain hazardous chemicals. Later on in the spring and summer, the sewage lagoons will be dredged. All of this is being paid for by the current owner, which Brigadier says was important for the ministry.
The current owner of the property had to post financial assurance with the ministry, and what that financial assurance does is, in the event that an owner walks away from a property and abandons a site, the ministry still has that financial assurance that we can draw on to ensure that the work is carried out and that the property isn't abandoned and taxpayers in Ontario are left on the hook for the cleanup and remediation.
The cleanup will continue through the summer, and Brigadier says there are no plans yet for future uses for the property.
The Combined Forces Drug Unit is reporting a major seizure. It came Wednesday following a search of a Home Avenue residence. Police say they located almost 2.5 kilos of marijuana worth about $50,000 and a small quantity of cocaine. Over $15,000 in cash was also seized. 2 men and a woman are facing charges.
Citizens in Dryden observed the 25th anniversary of the Air Ontario plane crash this week. While there were ceremonies at the site crash to mark the 15th and 20th anniversaries of the tragic event, there was no memorial service on March 10th this year. John Thompson reports.
A moment of silence in Dryden City Council chambers to remember the 24 people who lost their lives and the 45 people who survived the Air Ontario crash that caught national attention a quarter of a century ago. But this year, the memorial where ceremonies have been held in the past had almost no attention at all. At 10 minutes after noon, the flight's takeoff time in 1989, retired volunteer firefighter Raymond Godfrey was alone in paying his respects.
Well, it's difficult to see the bodies in the plane still sitting there, so that really catches you. Come back every 5 years just to pay the respects to the people that lost their lives. For me, it was difficult, but I've survived.
Ken Kurtz was a volunteer fire captain on site the day of the crash. He's now the Dryden fire chief. He says the town's ongoing financial crisis has kept everyone too busy to hold a community-wide observance.
We've got a lot going on in the city, so it makes it pretty tough to do that. And I think from our perspective, we were able to meet with all our firefighters last Wednesday because it was training night for both our fire halls, and we were able to bring everybody together and do about a 15-minute review of it, and it brought back a lot of memories. So we each do our own remembering, and it's something that's pretty hard to forget about, that's for sure.
Dryden Mayor Craig Nuttall was in a meeting at the airport where he co-chaired the board when the flight went down.
It was a very sad day in Dryden. I still remember that a lot of businesses just closed because it was devastating to us. And I always remember this one person that said to me, you know, that airfield's unsafe. And I looked at him and I said, you look like an intelligent person. How did you get here? And he flew in. So we have a very safe airport. But the problem was de-icing.
That problem led to a Winnipeg-based commission that changed air travel in Canada forever.
Commission of Inquiry reports after that were amazing, changing history in all of aviation, in airline safety and how planes are de-iced, where they're de-iced, stuff like that. The ability for people to report things to pilots when they see things on wings and contaminants, and there is methods now for you to, as a passenger, to report it, and they will have to de-ice.
Godfrey says it might be the last time he visits the memorial. The changes have been made, the wounds have turned to scars, and Dryden is letting the disaster drift into history. John Thompson, TBT News.
2 weeks into a state of emergency call due to a rash of residential fires, another home has burned down on the Mishkegaugamang First Nation. A 10-year-old trailer that was home to a pair of families and 7 people burned to the ground at about 3 o'clock yesterday morning. No one was injured, and Nishnawbe police are investigating the cause. Over the past 3 months, 6 homes have burned down, claiming the lives of 12 members of the community just south of Pickle Lake. Chief Connie Gray McKay is calling for every home to undergo a risk assessment. She's also organizing fire drills and escape training for children. The First Nation lacks indoor heated space for its firefighting equipment, which is frozen over the winter. The reserve has been living under a housing crisis that's been mounting for more than a decade.
More charges have now been laid against a Manitoba man in connection with a highway crash near Kenora, which was caught on a dash cam video. Sioux Lookout resident Ralph Ireland and his wife were traveling along Highway 17 on March 1st when a pickup truck hauling a trailer suddenly pulled out in front of them. Fortunately, none of the occupants suffered any serious injuries. Kenora OPP had originally charged the 36-year-old Manitoba man with failing to yield. But a few days later, Ireland retrieved the video from his dash cam and sent it to police. He also posted it online, and the images appeared to show the other driver talking on a cell phone. Kenora OPP continued their investigation and have now laid distracted driving charges against the man. The video, which quickly went viral, has now been viewed more than 200,000 times.
Ontario introduced legislation today that would prohibit private clinics that pay for blood donations. The issue came to light about a year ago when 3 private clinics set up shop in Ontario. Cass Rusi reports.
Come on, Vince. Come on. Mike McCarthy had a bounce in his step during the family's morning walk. For the last year, he's been an outspoken critic against the planned private clinics in Ontario, clinics that would collect and pay for blood plasma. But today, Ontario took the first steps to block the sale of blood plasma donations, and McCarthy couldn't be more relieved.
It's a great relief to know that our politicians still listen and that we're not going to make the mistakes of the past, and we're going to move forward to continue to build an even stronger and safer blood system in Canada.
Although Health Canada licenses clinics that collect plasma, it's up to provinces to permit the clinics to operate. Today, Ontario pretty much shuttered the private for-profit clinics, with the provincial health minister announcing it would introduce legislation that would prohibit the sale of blood products.
We don't allow people to sell organs or sell sperm or sell eggs. That's not legal. Why should it be legal to sell your blood?
The 3 private clinics operated by Canadian Plasma Resources have been ready to go for months, with employees hired and medical equipment installed. All that was needed was the go-ahead. In a statement today, Canadian Plasma Resources defended the need to pay for plasma and called on the minister to reconsider her decision, saying, "This is not about collecting blood or plasma for transfusion. This is about collecting plasma that will be manufactured into critical pharmaceutical products for patients with life-threatening diseases." For McCarthy, the fight was personal. He's a hemophiliac who contracted hepatitis C from contaminated blood back in the 80s.
Ontario seems to have heeded the lessons learned and are making proactive steps to ensure that we have a volunteer blood system in Canada.
Health Canada has completed a public consultation, and a final report is expected soon. Cass Rusi, CBC News, Toronto.
15 municipalities and First Nations are engaged in a process to bury Canada's nuclear waste, but MP Bruce Heyer believes the decision should involve a wider range of voices. The Green Party member for Thunder Bay Superior North will launch a campaign next week to hear regional opinions on nuclear power and burying nuclear waste in northwestern Ontario. Heyer will hold open houses in Terrace Bay, Marathon, and Nipigon from Wednesday to Friday. Because of the gap in Ontario's transmission corridor near Wawa, northern and southern Ontario are on 2 independent energy grids. None of the energy generated from nuclear power passes that point to the northwest. Heyer points out that this region is being asked to bury waste, which it has nothing to do with.
I'm opposed to building any more nuclear power plants or expanding the ones we have now. But we already have 50,000 metric tons in southern Ontario that we have to do something with. So the question is, should that waste stay in southern Ontario where it created electricity and jobs, or should it be shipped off to northwestern Ontario, which is politically and economically weak in their eyes?
Along with Scriber and Ignace, the Nuclear Waste Management Organization has identified several other potential sites for further study. Nipigon, Manitouwadge, White River, and Hornpain are also under consideration.
Local theatre lovers have a chance to see a Tony Award-winning play here in Thunder Bay. Magnus Theatre's latest production, titled Red, has its gala opening tonight. It's a story set in an art studio in 1958 and it takes the audience on a roller coaster ride. Courtney Rutherford has a preview.
Imagine being one of the most influential post-war American artists, and you're about to take on one of the most rewarding yet frustrating projects of your entire career. That's what Jewish immigrant Mark Rothko and his assistant Ken are about to embark on. Rothko uses colors to express emotions and spirituality that are going to be displayed in the luxurious Four Seasons restaurants of the newly built Seagram building.
The play is based on factual events that happened during Mark Rothko's life, and although the character of Ken is fictionalized in order to move the action of the play along.
Too close. There.
Red has been nominated for a total of 7 Tony Awards, picking up 6 of those, including Best Play, Best Featured Actor, Best Direction, Best Scenic Design, and Best Lighting. Mario Crudo is Magnus Theater's artistic director. He feels certain that people will leave the show talking about the production and the arguments throughout the play.
A very interesting thing about the play is that both characters take a little bit of a journey within the play, and both learn a great deal from each other. And it's quite unexpected in terms of where Mark Rothko ends up at the end of the play. It's quite un-Rothko-like. So I think that audiences will certainly be talking about that as well.
The play runs until March 29th. Tickets can be purchased online or at the Magnus Theater box office. Courtney Rutherford, TBT News.
Well, there is another sign that spring is on the way. City officials have announced that with the arrival of milder temperatures, Thunder Bay's outdoor skating rinks have been closed for the season. However, there is one exception. The rink at Prince Arthur's Landing will remain open for public skating for the time being.